How is everyone tonight? I'm like trying to get my hair out of my face here. Okay, so I am going to be covering the 5 pillars of your brand. So make sure that you have your notebook and a piece of paper ready, you know, whatever, a pen, and get ready to take some notes. But let's start with a little sparkle. So before we get started, here we go, let me get that focus. So before we get started, let's talk about something that was amazing today. Drop me something that's great in your life right now, and then we will begin. So as you hop in, let me know something amazing that's happened in your life, and then we will go straight into defining your brand and the 5 pillars of your brand. So the 5 pillars is going to be like 5 key points that we touch on. And so I think that this is one of those that really is eye-opening for a lot of people. Hello, as everyone hops in, give me one amazing thing that's happened today. Got my little, tell me one thing that's amazing. This is one of those things that it's gonna be very eye-opening on how you operate your brand and who you are. So there's lots of little notes for you to take because there's lots of homework to go back and take care of and complete when it comes to your brand. So when it comes to your personal brand, one of the biggest things is trying to tap into what you need to focus on for content on your timeline, on your social media, like in your life. Like, what is it that you focus on? What do you pull from? What do you use? And this is going to be how you define it. This is going to be how you really tap into what's important to you. So hello everyone, how are you? Makes you feel so fierce. That's awesome. I am very surprised by that, Lash, actually. So I'm surprised by all of them, actually. So I'm thrilled with them. I don't know that I can vote yet. So defining your brand, let's just hop right in. And if you hop in late, you could just catch the replay at this point. I want you to write these down. Here's 5 questions that I want you to ask yourself. Number 1, who am I? So number 1, who am I? Who are you? I mean, obviously you're Amy and Monica and Jennifer and Sarah. Like, obviously you've got a name, right? But who are you? Who are you really? I think it's really hard for women in particular to answer this question. I remember whenever I was doing a series a while back with empowerment in women, it was so hard for women that I was training to tap into who they are, because we're the mom, we're the spouse, you know, like we have our husband, we're the wife, we're the homemaker, we are running our kids around, we're the homeroom mom, we're all these things, but who are we? Who are we? So my first question that you really need to look at and write down is, number 1, who am I? Okay. Number 2, what do I stand for? What do you stand for? What are your values? What do you stand behind whenever you're talking about yourself? Like, what are your values? What's true to you? Number 3, what is your mission statement? So I worked on this question for a long time, a while back, a couple years ago, and that's where the Unleash Your Inner Sparkle came into play, because that was part of my mission statement. So my mission statement was it's about 3 sentences long, and at the end it was about unleashing your inner sparkle. So that's really where that came from, I pulled that out of my mission statement. So what is your mission statement? And you may ask, like, oh, I mean, that's kind of hard. Like, how am I going to find a mission statement? Like, I don't even know where to begin. What are companies' mission statements? Look at other mission statements. What is a mission statement? Go look at various mission statements and try to come up with one for your life personally. Number 4, I want you to ask yourself, what are your interests? What are your hopes? What are your dreams? What is it that you want to accomplish in life? What's your vision? What's the vision for your life? Like, what do you see your life being like now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What is your vision? It's a huge one. So when you're defining your brand, these questions come into play. And the last one that question that I'll have you go back and really think about after this is, what is my brand as an individual? What do you stand for? Because you're not grapey grape, right? Like, you're not your company, and you're not a particular item or product. So what is your personal brand? So those 5 questions I want you to take and go do them as homework, jot them down, answer your questions, and really dig deep, okay? So 5 pillars. It's gonna be 5 areas of your business that become your brand. These 5 pillars are the basis and your foundation for your brand and who you are. Guys, if you're commenting, I can't see them, so just so you know. But if it, maybe it'll come up in a little bit. If not, then I'll take questions later. But 5 pillars, the 5 areas that become the foundation of your brand, okay? So I had you jotting down words, right? Lots of things that you were thinking about with yourself, right? Everybody with me? The first thing that you have to do to figure out what are your 5 pillars. That's what we're gonna talk about. What are your 5 pillars? How do you figure out what your 5 pillars are? What do you do with those 5 pillars? And where do you go from here once you have those 5 pillars? Okay? So I had you jotting down words yesterday, things that related to you, putting them into categories, making you think about things, right? Did everybody do that? Who did that? Did you jot that down and get that homework done and have everybody, all the words written down? For me, I kind of did like a, I guess I would call it like a web. Like, I had my name in the center and I started like doing the lines across and creating all these and writing words all around the name, trying to come up with what my 5 pillars were when I did this way back. So the first thing is brain dump words, phrases, things that you love, values that are high importance to you. It kind of goes along with those questions like, who are you? What's your mission statement? What are your interests and dreams? Where do you see yourself? You know, what are you going to, what is your brand? Like, who are you? So if you didn't do it earlier, it's not a problem. Do it like this. Brain dump 20 to 25 words, phrases, values, things that are important to you. Just start writing them down. You can make lists, you can, you know, doodle, whatever you're doing, but just dump words. Think about the first things that come out of your mind. Like, what are some things? Like, for me, I could immediately say faith, family, unicorns, makeup. Like, you know, I can just shoot things out. Traveling, adventurer, you know, like words that are just going to come out really quick. Sparkle, glitter. Like, what are some things that just come to mind immediately when you think of yourself? For me, I could throw out a lot of words. I threw out some like cats, girls, girly, you know, like, I could go into fashion or whatever, you know, like write down lots and lots of things. And once you have that, that's the first step to figuring out what are your pillars. The next one is going to be to circle the top 5. And you may have 6, 7, 8, and that's okay. Circle those top 5 that you just can't live without. For me, I love my cats and I use my cats quite often, but it's not my brand. I mean, I talk about my animals, but it's not my brand. But they're kind of my family too, right? So I'll incorporate them with my family. So that's, you got to think about like, what is really, really important? Like, we have a dog. I don't talk about the dog because I'm not a dog person. So it's not really part of my brand. So think about those things. Circle your top 5. If you have 6, 7, that's okay. Circle them, get them kind of decided. Oh, now all of a sudden I saw a hello, hey. So I guess I'm seeing comments now. So circle your top 5. And if you have questions along the way, please let me know. After you have your top 5, 6, 7, 10, whatever, you can't decide, you're trying to figure it out, maybe branch them off and try to consolidate them. Like, for me, the cats are kind of part of my family. I don't know. Like, figure that out. And then I want you to list your 5 in order of importance. So what's the most important? So question for you, what do you think is the most important pillar for my business? I'm curious, what do you think my pillars are? Shoot, what do you think my pillars are? And what do you think is my most important pillar? I'm interested to see what you have to say. So what is my number 1 pillar for my business? for my brand. It doesn't even like your business, your brand, it's who you are. So it doesn't necessarily mean your business, but your brand, who you are, genuinely, to the core, without a shadow of a doubt. You cannot escape it. What are those top 5? What are those in order of importance? And what do you think my number 1 would be? So I did get a hello. Maybe I'm not seeing comments again. I'm not sure. So once you have them in a list, I want to see which one's more important. So if you have 6, 7, 8, 10, and you have them in line, now you've got your top 5, right? Like you had to put them in order of importance. It is so crucial that you actually take the time to put them in order of importance. So Monica says family and unicorn, and let's see, glitter and makeup. So Sabrina, you're not watching a replay. So my number 1 pillar is my faith. So my number 1 pillar is my faith. So my number 2 pillar is my family. So faith and then family. And you got unicorns. So that was one of them. Anything magical, unicorns. But unicorns also can be part of just who you are. It doesn't necessarily have to be your pillar as far as your like strong point. So for someone who loves puppies, but their puppies, everyone knows of them as puppies. They have puppies everywhere. They're always talking about their puppies, but it's just who's ingrained in you. It may not necessarily be a pillar. For instance, I'm a leader. Whether someone thinks I'm a leader or not, I'm a leader. I'm a leader through and through. To the core, to my bones, I am a leader. And so because I am a leader, I don't necessarily have to have that as a pillar, right? Because I am a leader. Everyone like will soon discover that I lead. So that's not a pillar, it is a characteristic. So with unicorns, I still use that as part of my pillar, but I'm just saying if there is something that comes up and you're like, oh, but I don't know, that was one I had to discover, because originally I had leadership as one of my pillars, and I had to think about that and say, well, leadership is really a skill, and it's really a characteristic. Are you following? Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense, because if not, I can explain more. But that for sure is that characteristic. So you don't have to put like, I want to be a leader, or I want to be, I want to be, I don't know, a director, or like, that's not part of it. You need to think about who you are as far as like, for me, faith and family. And then I makeup is one of them. So list your 5, figure out what your 5 pillars are. Once you have your 5 pillars in place, now you know exactly what your basis is for your brand. So for me, I've talked about my weight loss journey and the struggles with that and that sort of thing. And I've also said, like yesterday I said, things change along the way, right? So weight loss for me is not a pillar, but it is part of my life because it's part of who I am, and it's part of the betterment of myself, right? Like what I'm gonna do to make myself better, so that self-development and that empowering women or encouraging women to do more. So you can put that, like one of my pillars is the empowerment of women. Like I feel so strongly about helping women stand up for themselves. I feel incredibly strong about the fact that there are so many women that are trampled upon, who have been abused in all sorts of abusive ways, who don't have a voice. And I want to empower those women. I feel very strongly about that. I also feel very strongly about women in the workplace and shattering glass ceilings, right? So empowering women is a huge pillar for me. And so if I'm talking about weight loss or things like that are going to empower someone, I am going to say empowerment is a huge, huge one. I love that, Ashley. That makes me, you just made my day. This like makes my heart pitter patter. That is a huge thing for me, is empowerment. So we're human, and things are gonna happen where you just are having an off day, and maybe you're not so empowering that day. Maybe you're not so great that day. Maybe you're so far away from your brand because you're just in a slump. Like it's okay as long as you get back to where you need to be. But what are your pillars? So once you know what your pillars are, that needs to be your focus for your business. If you know what the foundation, the core inside you, like for me, faith, family, unicorns, leadership, empowerment, these things are pillars and characteristics of my brand. Okay. One of my big pillars also is adventure. I am an adventurer, a traveler. I absolutely love to travel. I am always ready for an adventure. Like as soon as I am done with one adventure or one trip, I'm like, what are we doing next? What are we doing next? What are we doing next? And I have been places that people would love to go. And I need to tap into that more because that is a pillar of myself. I love to travel. I love adventure. I have been to Israel. I have walked the Holy Land. Goes back to my first pillar, faith. I have had a baby in Hawaii, which I love Hawaii, and I love all of that. Like I've got like, and I also have another one that hibiscus on my leg. Like I love hibiscus. I love Hawaii. I love to travel. I'm like, when people talk about flying and I hear like, oh, I've never flown, it just blows my mind because flying is just a thing. I mean, even whenever we flew to California, my kids, I had both of my daughters, and I took the middle seat because no one wants the middle seat. So one of them had the window on the way there and one had the window on the way back. So I'm sitting there, and before we take off, I like put my headphones in and I sit back and I'm ready to just fly. And my youngest tells me, she says, you're so used to flying by yourself. I think you forgot you were flying with people. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, you're not even talking to us. Like I had my earbuds in and I'm ready to go. I have my set, like little things that I do because I love traveling. You love living vicariously through travelers. So I've seen a lot of things and I need to tap into that. I need to use that as, it is one of my pillars. It is a strong passion of mine. What is the adventure I can go on next? Where do we want to go? If I have a friend who says, hey, I earned this trip and I want to go over here, or they say, one of my girlfriends today, she lives in Florida, and we were on the phone and she says, you know what? We just need a weekend where we just get together and we just need to get together. And I said, well, why don't we go to New Orleans? Like, let's go to New Orleans. It's halfway, right? Like, let's do this. And I'm going to jump on it. Like if it's somewhere we can go, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. So what are your pillars? And I know I spent a lot of time on that, but people don't really know that part of me. And I think that's something that needs to come out. So what is it that's in you that needs to come out? Maybe it is your faith. Maybe it is more of your family. Maybe you need to be a little more open about your family. Whatever it is, figure out what those pillars are. Once you have those pillars, this is your foundation. This is what everybody knows what a foundation, right? Everybody knows that the foundation is that, think of a house, it's that concrete, it's what keeps everything together, right? Like if you don't have a foundation to a home, everything else is not gonna work. And the foundation, when there's cracks in it and things start to shift, it gets complicated. And then you got people coming in and it's a mess when there's foundation problems. So this is your foundation. It needs to be solid and it needs to be ready. So I'm not going to NOLA, but if I do, Ronnie, I will definitely give you a call. I want to go to NOLA. But that foundation needs to be very, very strong. So once those pillars are in place, that's what you focus on. Don't shake left and right. Don't let there be cracks. So what do I mean by that? When you are posting, does it align with your pillars? When you are doing a live, does it align with your pillars? When you are speaking on social media, does it align with your pillars? So one of yours is coffee. So if you're talking about coffee, girl, there you go. Like you can talk about coffee all day long. But if you absolutely hate beer, and I just threw that out there, I don't like beer. So you love coffee and you hate beer, but you have this thing about beer that you want to post on social media, don't post it. it's not part of your pillar. Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense. So if your pillar is, let's say you absolutely love baseball, like love baseball. It's your favorite sport in the whole world. You talk about baseball. You love baseball to death. You're not going to post about football. You're not going to post about soccer. You're not going to post about other sports if baseball is your passion. Does that make sense? So what those 5 pillars are your foundation. That is everything about your brand. Tap into that. And one of the biggest things that one of my coaches had said to me was, when you look into your pillars and you figure out, is there something, one of the questions I asked you earlier is like, what are your values? What do you stand behind? And I'd ask, like, what are your interests? What are your hopes? What is your mission statement? What do you stand for? What is something that you absolutely are incredibly passionate about that you cannot let go? For instance, mine is empowerment, okay? So, but, when it comes to family, one of the biggest things that I am extremely passionate about is suicide awareness. Now, that's one of those like touchy subjects. Some people understand it, some people don't. Some people think it's taboo, some people don't want to hear about it, some people don't want to talk about it. So that is a pillar that is going to be used in my brand, and it may create some controversy, but it is a strong, passionate part of who I am. I've had a daughter who's tried to commit suicide twice. I am passionate about it, about seeing the signs and knowing what's coming. And no, you don't always know, but we're not talking about that. So I know I have a friend, a leader who she is super passionate about vaccinations. One way or the other, whether you vaccinate or not, she's super passionate about vaccinations, and that is something that is one of her pillars. People know that about her. Okay, yes, exactly like that, Holly. So if you are passionate about something, my sister has a Fragile X child, which she also suffers from autism, but Fragile X is the first, it's that chromosome, it's one of the first signs of some type of mental defect. So that chromosome that's there, she's so passionate about Fragile X. A lot of people have Fragile X, and it gives them, they're like introverts. There's a lot that goes into it. But anyways, she's super, super passionate about Fragile X. She's got the tattoo of the X. She goes around, like, she does all of the things that go with Fragile X. She is such an advocate. She goes to Washington, D.C., and she marches. So if my sister was sitting here doing this, that would be a huge pillar. She lives that life every day. She has a Fragile X child. She has discovered that her dad had part of it. Her sister has part of it. It embodies you. Use that as your brand. It may not always be the company that you're with. It may not always be the products that you use. Maybe you're not into makeup and lashes. Maybe that's not part of your pillar. It is one of mine. I love makeup. But what is your pillar? What do you stand for? I hope this helps you like define your brand. Does anybody have questions about figuring out your pillars and also separating those from characteristics? Because your characteristics are going to be very different. For me, I broke it down, and I'll tell you, like with family, I wrote down like my family. I'm also a girl mom, and I talked about blended family, and I talked about the fact that I have, that I'm an advocate for suicide awareness. All those things go together with my family. Okay, so then my next category, empowerment, it goes into this whole realm of the unleash your inner sparkle. And so you've got to like separate them. It can be in categories, but you have to separate it as this is my strong force. Family, like faith, family, empowerment. Like what are those things? I'm in the wrong industry. Yeah, if you don't like makeup and lashes, you might be in the wrong industry. You got to have that as a passion, but it doesn't have to be a pillar. It really doesn't have to be a pillar. I know people who are in health and wellness, and they really don't, they're not passionate about creating diets or creating some food plan. So you do want to focus on what you're passionate about, but if it's just not something that's your number 1 through 5, then maybe, put that different. Having trouble separating them. Oh, you're welcome. If you have any other questions, please message me and I'll help you break it down. So if you are catching towards the end, please go back, listen to the 5 questions about who you are and what you stand for. Jot these things down, dig deep into who you are, and create your own mission statement. Create who you are. Figure out what your 5 pillars are, and from now on, going forward, your 5 pillars are what you talk about on social media. This is who you are. Change up your social media. Change up your, if you need help, go to our training site and go look over how to set up your profile to where it looks, your cover photo is not a company photo, all the things. Go look into how to set your Facebook page up. But I want you to really focus in on what makes you tick, what makes you you. If you're having trouble digging deep into that, watch the video I did yesterday and then go over these questions, jot some words down. And if you've thought about it for a while and you still can't quite stimulate that part of your brain to figure something out, message me and we can chat. But these 5 pillars need to be the basis of who you are and what you're doing. So from now on, before you hit the send button, before you actually put that on your timeline, think about it. Think about whether or not this is something that goes with your brand. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, it's not a bad thing. That whole weight loss thing for me has become part of my pillar, even though it's not something I'm super passionate about. So that's why, I put the McDonald's French fries and everybody's laughing about it because people struggle with that, right? That's something that people struggle with. But don't post anything that's totally off brand. So if you hate beer and all of a sudden you're posting about beer, and I go back to the one I used earlier, that's not appropriate. That's not what you're about. If you are a total hater of dogs and you put some little rough on there, why are you doing that? It has nothing to do with your brand. Do not be something you are not. Don't talk about something you're not. Don't try to be something you're not. Stick to your 5 pillars. And before you hit send on anything that you post on social media, think to yourself, does this align with my 5 pillars? Does this align with my brand? Hope this helps. Bye, guys.